So when I was on that island, because I had this odd pigmentation change to my skin color, and because I had been poisoned and I didn't feel, I couldn't trust the Seattle hospital system, and my nail color, you know, my nails had changed with the lines, you know, that you would have from something like that. I finally contacted Harborview, I think it was. Maybe it's not Harborview. It might be a different name. It's very close to Bainbridge Island, but it's right on the side of Bainbridge. Or very close to Bainbridge. And someone gave me a ride to that hospital. And then I first called the police and made a report, because I said, this is what happened, and I said I have to report it because this really did happen. And then the police there, they encouraged me to get checked out, and on that occasion I didn't think that they were trying to set me up. I thought that they really were trying to help, and that they believed me. So I went to the hospital and I told them these things, and the police officer seemed to be nice that I talked to there, and so I asked if they would do a hair sample, and I said I would give them some of my hair, and that I need to be checked for poisoning. And so I gave them all this, I gave them everything that they needed. And then later, I was checking with the lab, and someone didn't release the results to me right away. They said I had to get a doctor, and then they'd release the results to the doctor. But I talked to somebody who was through a lab somehow, and what I was told was that there was a very negligible amount of, specifically of arsenic, that specific chemical, found in my bloodstream. They said it was such a small amount, it didn't stand out, but they said that there was something else that stood out as abnormal in my blood. They found something else. So I remember asking them, well, what did you find? Because they had found some other chemical in my bloodstream. But the thing is when they do a poison test, they don't test for everything all over the board. I mean, if you think you had an overdose of warfarin, then you say, I think I had an overdose of warfarin. They test for that. You could say, since I had said arsenic, they looked for arsenic, but they weren't going to test for a bunch of other poisons. It's not like they can test for a whole ton of different things all at once. You know, you have to have a little bit of an idea of what you're trying to find. And yet, what I was told is, you know, first I wasn't being given the information. It was like someone was trying to hide it from me. And, excuse me, and then I was told that there was something different in my bloodstream, but that they couldn't release that information to me without knowing for sure who I was over the phone. And then when I called back later and tried to get my records, that entire story changed, and I was told, well, you have just a slight trace of arsenic, but it's just what you'd find in normal water, I think is what they said. It's not like really elevated. And then I think that everything else was supposedly normal, which was completely different from what I had initially been told, because what I was told first was that there was definitely a chemical found in my bloodstream. And I blogged about that, and I was telling different people about it, so I think that it's possible that someone wanted to change that. If somebody didn't want me to know that I did have something else in my bloodstream, I mean, if I had been medicated in some way, or poison, or some other form of poison was showing up, that it's possible that somebody wanted to get rid of that evidence or change the record, because all I know is that there really wasn't any reason for this person to lie to me and say that there was something strange, and then the next time that I am talking to them, I'm being told that there's nothing. There's just no reason for someone to lie to me to begin with. So I would tend to think that instead of having someone lie to me and just make up the fact that there was something abnormal about my blood and some sort of chemical that was showing up, I tend to think that that person was being honest, and then maybe someone, when I started writing about it and broadcasting to everybody that there was something unusual that had happened or was found, I think it's possible that somebody, I don't know how someone could do this, but it's not completely impossible to tamper with a medical record, and I know that for a fact. Because I've seen some of my records being changed, and I've seen my son's records being pulled from files too. And after I had the lab sent out from that hospital, there was really nothing more that I could do there. And at that point, I had gone to the police, I had this poison, this lab go out, and I couldn't stay in Bainbridge. There was nothing for me there. I couldn't go to Seattle because that's where I had been tortured and poisoned, there in the Tacoma area possibly. So at that point, I was trying to get back to Wenatchee. And I also thought that since I'd reported some things, maybe it wouldn't be quite so dangerous for me if I did now go back to Wenatchee. I think having the poison, having someone at least being willing to do a hair sample and check me for poison helped me feel like slightly more validated. And I was really thinking that, okay, now since I have had that done, I can prove to the court why I stayed away from Wenatchee, because I wasn't abandoning my son, I was doing it for safety reasons. And and then what happened is I was trying to get the ferry to go back to Seattle because I had a court hearing, and I had to at the last minute rush through and send a request for a couple days extension, because at the very last minute I did not have, I wasn't able to get, I didn't have enough money, and because I'd been poisoned and had to have this whole investigation and everything happen and be tested for things and go to the police, I didn't have enough time to get back in time. So I sent something on an emergency basis, and when I first sent it to the courthouse, their fax, they said to send it, but actually I had a public defender, and they turned their fax machine off so that they couldn't receive anything from me. This was my public defense that did that. And I think right now I think I'm going to stop at that point. Because after that happened, I changed public defenders. I was able to finally get it to go through, but I had to go a whole roundabout way of doing it. And at that point, then I knew I couldn't trust my public defenders at all, because they had tried to keep me from getting in my reasons for not being present, which were good, solid reasons. And if I didn't have those submitted to my attorney, basically I could be found like a no-show or in contempt of court or something like that, and put in jail. And here that public defender's offices was actually trying to assist in having me, they were trying to block me from getting records to the attorney to show that I needed a little time. So they weren't working for me. And I will talk about that tomorrow. Today, as I said, is October 10th. I'm just kind of tired, and I have some things I have to get done, and I was tortured today. I was tortured not this morning, but this afternoon at about 3 o'clock, between 2 and 5 o'clock approximately, basically just burned, basically a total burning sensation in my entire chest region, and it wasn't like heartburn. It wasn't from anything that I ate. It was being lasered or something, and burnt so badly that then when they finally stopped, which was about the time that my parents got home because they were away for a couple days, when it stopped, I then had the chills because of the sudden, because they had suddenly quit overheating me, and I then went into more of a hypothermia feeling. And this country's done that many times to me too as well.